Assista ao que foi tratado no último dia 15 de maio na Comissão de Educação da Câmara. É a volta do kit gay nas escolas, onde milhões de crianças estarão sendo estimuladas a serem homossexuais. Assista.
Ao longo do seu governo, o senhor indicou 6 dos 10 ministros hoje em atuação no Supremo e há um certo sentimento entre alguns juristas de esquerda que esse Supremo Tribunal, essa parte do Supremo Tribunal indicada pelo senhor, não é tão de esquerda assim, talvez até por questões religiosas de muitos desses ministros que são praticantes. Esse Supremo é de fato a cara esses indicados pelo Supremo são os ministros dos seus sonhos, quer dizer, são a cara do governo Lula, ou no fundo eles são uma composição de fatores políticos e de pressões políticas que levariam a criar esse Supremo? E uma última pergunta seria, o novo ministro a ser indicado, será que ele tem uma cara diferente, né, mais favorável aí a questões como aborto, direitos dos homossexuais, que estariam menos relacionados aí, menos ligados, digamos assim, às posições da Igreja Católica? Obrigado.
Gostaria de iniciar abordando um tema um tanto controverso, que é o da sexualidade infantil, que recorrentemente, no caso da pedofilia dentro da Igreja Católica, é a culpa da criança homossexual. Tá? As brincadeiras sexuais infantis também podem envolver os outros, meninos buscando conhecer os corpos de outros meninos e meninas, e meninas buscando conhecer os próprios corpos e o de outras meninas e meninos. Então, quando meninos e meninas brincam, inclusive sexualmente em seus corpos, tá, com outros meninos e meninas, eles não estão sendo gays ou lésbicas quando fazem isso com pares do mesmo sexo. Não é disso que se trata. Que deixem as crianças brincarem em paz. Tá? Isso as tornará adolescentes e adultos mais inteligentes e potencialmente mais perspicazes no enfrentamento e na transformação do mundo que lhes deixamos como herança.
Entretanto, e aí é um fenômeno que eu tenho percebido nos últimos anos, é que as crianças estão aparecendo, surgindo como homossexuais e se identificando como cada vez mais cedo.
A Bíblia não foi escrita em português, né? A Bíblia foi escrita em grego. E a Bíblia usa Paulo, para falar a verdade, porque é muito generalizante a gente falar, né? Em 1 Coríntios 6,9, Paulo diz que o sodomita, ele é traduzido assim, em português: os sodomitas e os efeminados não entrarão no reino dos céus. E asenoi koitai é uma palavra controversa, porque é quase que um analogismo. Ele pode ser traduzido como homem de cama, como prostituto ou como estuprador.
Que ela diz que a professora dela foi a prostituta. E a escola dela foi a escola da vida.
Minhas melhores professoras foram justamente as prostitutas. Por onde eu fui expulsa foi o meio que me acolheu.
Então não tem nem o que se discutir, entendeu? Um kit ou qualquer coisa, até dele ser chamado um kit gay, que no Estado brasileiro que vê essa necessidade de ser colocado isso dentro das escolas, e ele tem que colocar, não tem que ficar entrando nessas todas discussões.
Do projeto Escola Sem Homofobia, que, repito, falo aqui nem como deputada, falo também como professora que sou, um projeto cuidadosamente elaborado, né, dentro, inclusive, dos padrões científicos.
Um dos materiais didáticos, um dos filmes, tinha um beijo na boca. E a gente ficou, um beijo lésbico na boca. A gente ficou uns 3 meses discutindo até onde entrava a língua, né? Então era...
Nós temos que lutar para que esse projeto chegue no chão da escola, porque é lá que ele tem que chegar mesmo.
Com um monitor ensinando como colocar a camisinha no pênis. E aí ele explicava para você abrir a camisinha, apertar a camisinha na ponta, desenrolar até a base do pênis antes de introduzir o pênis na vagina. E desenrolar até a base do pênis antes de introduzir o pênis na vagina. E o pênis na vagina, e o pênis na... Depois do 10º pênis na vagina, eu virei para ele e perguntei: mas, meu querido, quem disse que eu vou introduzir o pênis na vagina? E ele levou uns 10 minutos para entender o que eu estava dizendo. Trabalhar gênero e sexualidade não tem idade mínima. Na verdade, a gente está falando de questões que têm a ver com todas as faixas etárias. No ensino fundamental, a gente pode trabalhar de diferentes maneiras.
Bancada no Congresso Nacional, uma bancada evangélica também, uma bancada católica, vamos dizer, uma bancada cristã, que muitas vezes faz uma pressão muito grande para a aprovação de determinadas leis, que são leis que, no fundo, representam valores morais, não da totalidade da população, mas representam valores morais dos religiosos. Não é?
Para o material, a hora que fosse na escola, ele não ficar enfiado lá em alguma gaveta. Então, para colocar o cartaz na escola, para as professoras e os estudantes poderem reivindicar. E outra, esse material foi feito com recursos públicos.
Agradecer à Comissão de Direitos Humanos, aí nos nossos queridos deputados, que inclusive aprovamos uma emenda de 11 milhões na semana passada. Obrigado ao Chico Alencar, que tem sido o nosso grande articulador.
Recursos da nossa população, que veio do dinheiro público.
Cada vez que alguém vai ao fundamento dessa cultura, que é a Bíblia, e toma a Bíblia ao pé da letra, a gente pode chamá-la de fundamentalista sem medo de ser feliz. O caso do Rio de Janeiro, por exemplo, em que um vereador propôs uma aberração constitucional, uma lei inconstitucional, uma aberração mesmo, que propõe que o município proíba a distribuição na rede pública de ensino municipal de qualquer material que venha enfrentar a homofobia ou trabalhar o tema.
Vemos pastores que sempre quando falam de pedofilia, querem ligar a pedofilia à homossexualidade, quando que as pesquisas nos mostram que mais de 70% dos pedófilos são pais, são tios, são avós, são primos. Talvez os outros 30% estejam aí dentro das igrejas, nos púlpitos, vestindo batinas e pregando por aí. O deputado Jean falou do capetinha que tentou, porque filho de capeta é capetinha, né? O capetinha que tentou passar uma aberração lá na Câmara dos Vereadores do Rio. É um absurdo não deixar que seja distribuído material.
Ele diz que Jonatas era uma vergonha para sua família, e o hebraico vai usar a palavra amante, né, de Davi. Então, não há uma certeza, há especulações sobre esse romance, mas a gente percebe nos textos bíblicos uma ligação muito forte entre Davi e Jonatas, e a palavra que Saul fala para Jonatas, palavras ofensivas, são palavras que dão a entender que Jonatas amava Davi como um homem ama uma mulher.
Menino de 12 anos, porque é pego com uma revista gay, é expulso das escolas públicas, porque o que a gente mais vê nas escolas públicas são imagens de santos, crucifixos, enquanto que o Estado é laico. Eu acho que está na hora da gente tirar as imagens de Maria, de santo isso, de santo daquilo, e de crucifixos dos espaços públicos.
Completamente, eu não vou dizer cego, mas convencido de que o que isto aqui diz é verdade. E eles são convencidos disso em suas igrejas, e eles não largam a fé.
Eles têm um poder de projetos fundamentalistas religiosos, esses desgraçados. Eles têm um poder político de projeto que só está se consolidando. Casamento civil igualitário vai dar muito trabalho, porque essa desgraça dessa palavra, desgraça dessa palavra está eivada de sentimento cristão.
Isso pode acontecer no século XXI, então temos que acabar com isso. Mas eu sei que eu estou disposto a pegar em armas se for.
Não podemos assistir passivamente este movimento que busca acabar com a família e as religiões. Mesmo respondendo a dezenas de processos, continuarei fazendo a minha parte. Quanto a você, não se omita. Amanhã poderá ser tarde.
O we had a whole plan that sold abortions, and it was called sex education. Break down their natural modesty, separate them from their parents and their values, and become the sex expert in their life so they turn to us when we would give them a low-dose birth control pill they would get pregnant on or a defective condom. Our goal was 3 to 5 abortions from every girl between the ages of 13 and 18.
The multitudes of people that have been hurt by abortion, it's just unfathomable. That abortion is really, to me, the ultimate exploitation of women.
It is so shameful and secretive that many women don't tell anybody that they've had an abortion.
They won't say anything for 20, 30, 40, 55 years. They're so traumatized. Silence.
U.S. Senate report states, physicians, biologists, and other scientists agree that conception marks the beginning of the life of a human being, a being that is alive and is a member of the human species. There is an overwhelming agreement on this point in countless medical, biological, and scientific writings.
Planned Parenthood is expanding now. They're building gigantic abortion clinics in anticipation of socialized medicine.
There's a lot of money involved. We never would take personal checks. We always encouraged the ladies to bring cash.
Why is that?
So, well, you don't have to report cash, friend.
When you're fighting for your life, you need to know what you're fighting for. And if what you're fighting for is life, how do you destroy a life in an effort to fight that fight? I'm fighting so hard to save myself that I'll kill someone else to get that.
I recognized I'd been involved in the death of 35,000 babies.
And the truth has really come out about what abortion does to women, let alone the unborn baby, or dead babies. It will be over.
Recently, there was an announcement both by David Cameron and by President Obama that, you know, they are willing to cut off aid to countries who do not recognize LGBT rights. No, we want to object to that as just being manipulation.
President Obama issued a directive to all U.S. government agencies that engage in international activities to make advancing LGBT rights a top priority.
We have done more in the 2.5 years that I've been in here than the previous 43 presidents to uphold that principle.
The Obama administration defends the human rights of LGBT people as part of our comprehensive human rights policy and as a priority of our foreign policy.
For us, family stands at the heart of everything we do. We live for the family.
Gay rights are human rights, and human rights are gay rights.
We do not want any discrimination against anybody under any condition, whether sexual or otherwise. But we have to state clearly and forcefully that this concept stands against everything we stand for in Africa.
They actually said that for us to combat HIV and AIDS, we needed to legalize prostitution, legalize homosexuality.
Infection rates are going up in the U.S. They're going down in Kenya. They seem to be going down in Ethiopia now. They went down in a major way in Uganda, and yet we're going to these countries and telling them how to prevent AIDS.
Our approach is gradual. Abstinence, be faithful to each other, but if you can't, use the condom.
What is amazing is that these countries that are harassing us, smaller countries, in these countries, the rate of HIV/AIDS, it is said to be out of control.
what arrogance for us to tell them how to do something that they're doing better than we are. And that should be obvious to the casual observer.
UNAIDS published and circulated an email which was false and malicious about me, because they felt that they needed to have in the document language relating to men who have sex with men and sex workers. As a result of the pressure that UNAIDS put to bear in this email, I was advised that my contract would not be renewed.
My brother Luigi and I had an opportunity to go to the United Nations, where we saw developed countries trying to force the African countries to accept comprehensive sexuality education.
It's about starting when we're with children, about the expectation of roles, and we need to start there.
This kind of education tells youth they can have fun and have sex and just use condom. This kind of message was a death sentence to not only both of my parents but also my brother Rogerio.
This is because it lets our population believe they can let their guard down and they can actually behave in risky behavior because of the belief that these condoms can actually prevent AIDS 100%, and that is not true.
In Dr. Green's book, Broken Promises, How the AIDS Establishment Has Betrayed the Developing World, he says the research shows that the sexual rights approach to AIDS prevention, championed by the UN and Western donor countries, may actually be increasing the rate of infections, not bringing them down. And if he is right, millions have died unnecessarily.
Well, the end result will be deconstruction of the family system and the family structure in Jamaica.
It is an affront to the principles of the UN Charter. A UN agency should not be allowed to overstep its bounds in such a manner.
What we're seeing is the LGBT agenda being pushed, like a carrot stick for aid money. You want aid money, then you must change your laws. These issues of gays, trans rights, transsexuals. This is a new form of imperialism, I must say.
But Stoneburner said that history will look back on this period and say one of the great abuses of the latter part of the 20th century is a failure to do AIDS prevention in ways we know are effective.
It's deception.
Act now and go to standforfamily.org and watch the full documentary online and sign the petition to stop cultural imperialism. Let's unite with people across the world and stop the abuses exposed in this film.
I'm Lieutenant Williams, a police officer attached to the Juvenile Division. I'm on my way to Monroe Junior High School to talk to a group of young people. That looks innocent enough, doesn't it? Lots of young people hitchhike. Seems like a good way to get from one place to another. But sometimes there are dangers involved that never meet the eye. Let's take the case of Jimmy Barnes. Jimmy played baseball all afternoon and he didn't feel like walking home, so he decided to thumb a ride. He'd done it 100 times before, and he didn't think anything was unusual when the driver struck up a friendly conversation. In fact, he seemed like a real nice guy. He asked Jimmy if he played baseball in the park often. Jimmy told him they practiced 3 times a week and played a rival group on Friday afternoon. The stranger was a good listener, too, and it only seemed minutes before they pulled up in front of Jimmy's house. When Jimmy got out, the stranger gave him a friendly pat. Then he told him he'd see him again, as he always drove by the park on his way home. Sure enough, the following day, when Jimmy finished playing ball, well, the man was there waiting. They stopped at a drive-in, and the stranger treated him to a Coke. During their conversation, he told several off-color jokes, but Jimmy had heard others before, and well, it made him feel big to so easily win the confidence of an older person. The following Saturday, they went fishing together. By now, they were using first names. Ralph said it was more friendly. Jimmy hadn't enjoyed himself so much in a long time. Then during lunch, Ralph showed him some pornographic pictures. Jimmy knew he shouldn't be interested, but, well, he was curious. What Jimmy didn't know was that Ralph was sick, a sickness that was not visible like smallpox, but no less dangerous and contagious, a sickness of the mind. You see, Ralph was a homosexual, a person who demands an intimate relationship with members of their own sex. But by now, Jimmy felt a fondness for Ralph, and they continued to go places together. Ralph was generous and took Jimmy many interesting places and did many nice things for him. He bought presents and even gave him money, but payments were expected in return. You see, Jimmy hadn't recognized Ralph's approach soon enough. When Ralph first asked Jimmy to go fishing alone, he should have discussed it with his parents or teacher. Finally, Jimmy told his parents, and they reported it to the juvenile authorities. Ralph was arrested, and Jimmy was released on probation in the custody of his parents. But all homosexuals are not passive. Some resort to violence, as in the case of Mike Merrick. In the heat of competition, no one noticed the man who sat and watched. And when the game broke up and the others left, Mike decided to stay and practice a little longer. The stranger joined him. He was friendly and, well, it was better than playing alone. But after a few shots, Mike realized he had already overstayed his time and suggested he better leave. The stranger told him if he'd like to stay longer, he'd be glad to drive him home when they finished. Sounded great to Mike. Chance to play longer and get a ride home, too. When they finished, the stranger told him he'd make a fine player someday if he got lots of practice. The companionship, the praise, the friendly attitude dispelled any misgivings Mike might have had about going with a stranger. He probably never realized until too late that he was riding in the shadow of death. But sometime that evening, Mike Merrick traded his life for a newspaper headline. As Denny and Jerry got the papers ready for Jerry's afternoon delivery, They only casually noticed the two boys that raced by in the afternoon traffic, and they didn't pay much attention to the car that drew up shortly afterwards until the man called them over. Had two boys been by on bicycles? The boys nodded they had. Could they recognize them if they saw them again? Well, Denny guessed he could. Then hop in, the man said. Those are stolen bikes. Without giving it another thought, Denny got in and the car sped away. Jerry watched. He'd been told many times, if a friend got in a car with a stranger, to write down the license number. It didn't seem to apply, but, well, fortunately, he marked it down. When he delivered a paper to Denny's house, he asked his mother if they'd caught the boys that had stolen the bicycles. Denny hadn't returned, so he told her the story and gave her the paper with the license number. Being a careful parent, she decided to call the police. Jerry supplied the necessary information, and the stranger's car was quickly spotted. It was a good example of how important it is to always get the license number and description of any stranger who takes a young person off alone, no matter what they tell you. Public restrooms can often be a hangout for the homosexual. Bobby and his friends hadn't noticed the man who had been in the restroom when they changed, and as it was late, he suggested they take the shortcut under the pier, but the others preferred to take the more traveled way home. When Bobby recognized the stranger as the man in the restroom, the shortcut under the pier didn't seem like a good idea at all. After all, it's more fun to stay with your friends anyway. Bobby had made a wise decision. It may have saved his life. The decision is always yours, and your whole future may depend on making the right one. So no matter where you meet a stranger, be careful if they are too friendly, if they try to win your confidence too quickly, and if they become overly personal. One never knows when the homosexual is about. He may appear normal, and it may be too late when you discover he is mentally ill. So keep with your group, and don't go off alone with strangers unless you have the permission of your parent or teacher.